which is that you love this neighborhood.
Yeah.
And tell us about your neighborhood and why you're here and what you love about it.
Well, actually, what happened when I had grown up in the Rockford Park area, and had gone away to school after growing up and going to school in Wilmington, and I got into real estate. I mean, actually, it started with a video company, and the people needed a videographer for the real estate, so I responded to an ad, and then they said, "Hey, why don't you be our property manager? Why don't you get your real estate license?" So that's how I got into the real estate business. So there was a woman that was getting divorced. She lived out on Falk Road, and she said, "Oh, I know this neighborhood in the city, and I want to buy a duplex. I want to have an apartment that now I'm going to be free. I want to have some income." So she bought a duplex over there on 8th Street. So I discovered the neighborhood. I was like, wow, I didn't even know this existed. And my parents belonged to the University and Whist Club. That was the furthest I had ever been over here into this side of Wilmington. So I found my first house at 1207 West 7th Street, and it was priced at $32,500. I was like, okay, I can afford this house. And I went into it, and it was it needed so much work, but it was so awesome. It was built in the 1880s. So just from that point to this day right now, I love the historic beauty and the historic character of this neighborhood. And it's been really fun to watch it metamorphose into something as a community and not just houses. I mean, when we worked with the Delaware Center for Horticulture and all these trees planted, and just worked with, in my own career, I sold over 200 properties in this neighborhood between 6th Street and Pennsylvania Avenue and 95 to Rodney Street. So this was was who I was. And so I had also had this love of art, and so I was traveling in Puerto Rico for a wedding, and as a realtor, I saw this for sale sign in this building, so I bought it. So I now have a commercial building in Puerto Rico with an art gallery there, and I have an apartment and a guest apartment, so I go back between Puerto Rico and Delaware. And my life changed a lot back in 2008. A couple things happened to me personally. But then in 2009, my mother developed cancer and my niece developed cancer. And so I spent much more time here. And unfortunately, both my niece Eloise and my mother passed away from cancer. But I decided, to stay here and really try to make a difference. And get through the recession. And that's why I'm here and what I'm trying to do. So that's the long answer to your short question, why do I love this neighborhood?
It's a thorough answer. There's a lot going on with drug use and violence in the city, and that would be on the darker end. You just expressed a kind of hopeful, positive view of landing here and loving the historic nature of this neighborhood. How do you relate to the dark stuff, the negative stuff that's happening? I mean, how do you come at that?
Well, I told this story before, and it's a little bit of a controversial story, but I recently even brought it up again, as I know that I'm a fortunate one. When I had such a bad economic time the last couple of years, the city, my house that I own at 700 North Harrison, the city was going to take away from me because I had an overdue tax bill, because I had an equity line on a mortgage and I didn't have the money to pay the taxes, and quite humiliated to ask my father for any money, having, he just lost his wife, and I'm one of a big family. End up that I spoke about it, but about me being a fortunate one, and what segue into this about the drug situation. When I was in high school, I was at the Vic Mead Hunt Country Club for a cotillion, and I was with some friends in a car, and there was over an ounce of weed in the car. And so we were smoking weed, and all of a sudden, boom, boom, boom on the car window, and it's a state trooper. So because of who I was and where I was, I got driven home to my parents, okay? And that was it. No arrest, no crime was committed. So back to the 1207 house. That was my first house, and after living there and working on it, it was burglarized. And the police came to the house, and they were like, they literally did question me, like, what are you living here for? Why are you here? This was back in the 1990s. And they didn't solve the crime, they dusted it, but I found a Pabst Blue Ribbon beer in my art studio. So I called and I said, I want this dusted. They dusted it, they found out that it was a person that lived catty corner across the street. and he was in his 30s, but it was his third crime, and it's 3 strikes out, so he was going to prison for life. So Stanley Smith went to jail, and I remember visiting him in jail, and he actually died in jail. And I realized, wow, these laws are so messed up. Here I am able to just live my life, and because he had sold 2 different times joints to undercover agents, this is a 3rd crime, I forgave him for burglarizing my house. He admitted he was a crack addict. And it became State of Delaware versus Stanley Smith. I couldn't even be a witness. I couldn't do anything about it. I went to visit him in prison to try to help him out. And so the theme I use is that, we need to arrest the problem, not the people. We need to look at this holistically and really work together and see this as a society that needs to be healed and work through those problems. And not just throw people off to jail because of who they don't have a lawyer or they don't have the right type of background. Because you know what, when you do that, you take that Stanley Smith, he was taken out of that family, he had children, he had a girlfriend, he had a mother, he had brothers, and then you know what, the only way they interact with him is go down to Smyrna to go visit him in prison in some cell block. What a horrible way for us to deal with the drug problem here in America. And I think it's really time is overdue that we need to deal with this in a nice, compassionate way, instead of just throwing people away or just like creating these like prejudices of like that are just completely ridiculous.
So more intervention and treatment rather than arrest
Yeah,
and throwing away the kid.
absolutely. Because that's what could have happened to Stanley. He could have lived. Like, did he commit any hard crime? Yeah, he did burglarize my house. Did he do anything, hurt anybody? No. So why was his life wasted sitting in a prison cell? And it's not cheap to have people in prison. It's not as if like, oh, that's the discount way to take care of this problem. That's an extremely expensive way for society to handle this. And it's just so, to me, one of the biggest problems in America and one of the biggest problems here in Wilmington because of the heavy use of drugs and the proximity and the hub of the drug trade. I mean, Wilmington is a big, it's overwhelmed. We're a very small community, and the drug problem is huge. And we don't have the federal agents that I know of that come and take care of, help this problem. So that's something that needs to be done on through the Attorney General's office, through the governor. I mean, it's not just like a local issue.
However, what is, you're obviously invested in the community and trying to, what's more that you think the community might be able to offer up to address the issue at a deeper level?
Well, I think one of the things, there was a thing called Operation Splash, I think it was, and through the Weed and Seed program through the Attorney General's office a while ago. And what they did, and I find it is a successful way to address this kind of issue. When recently there were 3 kids shot and killed at 4th and Delmore. What a devastation and trauma to a community. So instead of just like, oh, are there any witnesses and just created like this emergency, we should have camped out, blocked off a 3-block radius, and just camped out, brought a mobile police unit, hung out there, social services there, have like entertainment, have like people having almost like a block party and not to like make light of the situation, but let people come out and talk about it and like really feel what happened there, instead of just having a cross or a bucket with flowers around it. Like it's so impersonal and such a disrespect to the person that lost their life. It's like, I mean, the worst thing that happened to me on 7th Street was when someone was shot in front of my house on a bad drug deal. And the city councilman at the time, Sammy Prado, who's still city councilman, that night came over and talked with the people. We went over to the mayor's apartment building right over here. There still lives here. And we knocked on the door. It was a large crowd. He wouldn't answer. He did not come to the door. And it was horrifying to feel that disconnect. And I like him on a personal level, but as a representative of our city, it's such a disconnect, and that disconnection and like is horrible. I felt horrible. I was so traumatized. All these neighbors that our own mayor wouldn't come down and talk with us. And ironically, like a few weeks later, I'm going to show you this. My handyman was killed, and I remember this happened like just a couple of months after the shooting. And I remember being interviewed, and they said there's another shooting. And I remember opening the paper, and I was like, oh my God, my handyman was killed. It had nothing to do with crime, drugs either. He was a fight over a girl, and they got shot in the back. But like, it was horrible. And 2 weeks after that, the mayor was hit by a crack addict at 9th and Harrison right here. And on New Year's Day, I don't know if you remember that, January 1 of 2008, I believe it was, or 7 or 5 actually. And we tried to do a vigil, and the current mayor's administration was like, wouldn't let us do a vigil in front of the building, and we were like, God, what is wrong with these people? Seriously, this is what's wrong with what's happening now, is I don't think there's like this compassionate, like, come on, let's all like get together and try to figure this out together, instead of being this divisive, oh, they're just drug addicts, or this whole racial, just horrible. Like we've completely missed the boat on how to bring people together.
It's interesting too because his roots are in social work.
Yeah, it is. It's very interesting. I talked with my father, and I talked with him at the Jazz Festival, Mayor Baker, and about what he wanted to do when he's no longer mayor, and he says he wants to teach and stuff like that. And I don't know whether it was about the music or whether it was about community stuff. But I realized I didn't know that he was the honorary chairman of the Sister Cities program. And I really believe in that as a way of also bringing people together from our communities within, but also communities that we have in Puerto Rico and Jamaica. We have heritage of people from there that we should be interacting with here in a much stronger way. And that's something I would like to really work on. And I talked with him, and if that's the case, I would love to work with him on that.
Okay.
You have a remarkable resilience. I can imagine a lot of people, having had the experiences you've had, would have been so demoralized they might have moved out or experienced a crushing depression. But you have somehow continued to be optimistic. You're still here. Can tell the sort of the optimism of your spirit spills over to the front of your building. There are all these bright colors that you put out there to say something positive in my view.
Right.
How do you keep that? What keeps you going that way?
Just the way I was raised. My parents raised us to encourage our spirit, encourage our creativity, and not let that all that other stuff get you down. And just the calmness in chaos is the key to success, really. It's very difficult some days to remain calm in chaos, but if you can remain calm in chaos, then you really help bring calmness to the chaos, But if you become escalated, which is really easy to do in this heat, or if someone says something to you, or it sparks something, it's very difficult. It's a huge challenge. But I think that not to bring up my mom and niece again, but I think that was just such a hit. Two people that were very healthy, and they just got hit, and lost them in a short period of time, and really made you appreciate life and just enjoying the day, and just stopping and looking and saying, wow, and appreciating it, instead of just being upset about something that isn't going right, or the latest. I think this is what's so upsetting to me in Wilmington. So many people focus on the crime, and it's understandable, but it's something that we need to address the roots of the crime, and not the actual crime. And we need to say, well, and I listen and I see kids. The kids that don't have economic means, they don't have any place to go. Really, is there a place for these kids to go? We don't really address it as a way that we could easily too. We could block off some streets on the weekends and let kids play in the street. There's so many different things that we can do very efficiently, inexpensively, and get people to work together, just hang out and have fun, and not be so fearful and of each other. So.
Awesome.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.